Hello, my friends. I'm going to have to fix that. It ends abruptly on me and surprises me. Hello, my friends. It's Andy coming to you from Yorba Linda for the Vote PYL Vote broadcast. And of course, yesterday was the first day of school for the school district. And right out the gate, some of our kids were asked by their teachers, "What are your pronouns?" This will never end. But we need to continue to fight, regardless of where we're going to be able to go with this whole thing, which is just simply this nonsense that's going to continue. I've shared with you a few weeks ago, I think it was, or I can't remember what it was, a long email that I sent to the school district at the end of the school year about, we need to stop this nonsense and the LGBTQ indoctrination and all the other nonsense that comes along with it. And I wrote out, not in great detail, but in enough detail to explain to them why. I know that they seem to think thinks, maybe that's proof right there, that they think that parents have no clue what it is they're talking about on any issue. It turns out most of the parents that were coming to the school board meetings over the last couple of years were 100% right on every mandate issue, from the nonsense of closing the schools to the ineffectiveness of masks to the vaccines would not stop somebody from getting the COVID and all that kind of stuff. I know with me mentioning it, this will simply be taken off of all social media. So you may need to follow me on Rumble, one of the locations where this is broadcasting. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Maybe I didn't put it on Twitter today. I missed the Twitter button. But we are on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Rumble. But parents were 100% right in all those areas, because we've seen what the CDC has done. We see all the studies, the same studies that I sent them a year ago, 2 years ago, that hold up and are still true today, that they chose to ignore, and they being the school district, and didn't fight back against the state. So here we are now with still, even though our district has banned CRT, and I know that many people don't think that this is included, but when the LGBTQ, the harm that they're doing to the nuclear family, or the fact that they believe the nuclear family is wrong or racist for some reason, is part of CRT. So they're going to continue with these other things because they're claiming, we didn't know that was part of the banning of CRT. Yes, it is all part of CRT. I know that many of you don't think it is. You watching that are on the left and choose to harm our kids and that think parents are terrorists. But all these issues are also a part of CRT. But first, I'm going to get into that, the issue with the pronouns and the gender issues that came up day one at El Dorado. Oh my gosh, I need to have a cup of coffee. El Dorado and Tuffrey. I haven't heard anything from Golden yet, but I'm sure there's an elementary school somewhere that a teacher or a librarian asked the students what pronoun they wanted to be called or what gender they are. One of the 50s that they claim are out there. But it needs to stop. This has to, every parent needs to get pissed off about this. And I'm going to go through some of the reasons why. I have a lot of information, but it would take about 2 hours for me to go through all the information that I do know about this. And I'm just going to hit some of the points. But let me first talk about something that's that's equally as important and just as deadly to our kids. And that is fentanyl. Fentanyl, if you have not talked to your child about not taking anything, elementary school kids to middle school to high schoolers that do not accept even candy, Skittles, Tic Tacs, aspirin, which is not candy, but you know what I mean. Any kind of aspirin, any kind of Advil or Tylenol from a friend. Do not. I don't care how bad their headaches are. If it's not a doctor that is there or a trainer that we can trust as a trainer. Do not accept anything and take anything from any child. And it just has to be. Here is what fentanyl that's coming across the border right now that China is poisoning our country with, along with the Mexican cartels, which are open borders, is just simply feeding this poison to our children across the southern border. This is what it looks like. This is what's coming across now. Does that not look like the candies that we used to get off of remember the paper? Remember the paper that it would come on and be stuck to? Like half of that would be stuck to the paper. I forgot what they even called it. Or the necklace that used to be made out of these things. This was what the candy looks like. This is fentanyl. Not even a part, like a quarter, less than a quarter of one of those pills will kill your child. They must not accept anything. It is too dangerous. This is also what it looks like. It looks like chalk. If a child is given one, this will kill them almost instantly. That is a lot of fentanyl right now, right there that you're seeing on the screen. And how do we know this? Because this is what it looks like. So on the right is a dime. You all recognize what a dime is. You see on the left is heroin. That's a little bit more substantial, but still, it doesn't take much to kill a child. But these are lethal doses of opioids. The first one being heroin, the second one being fentanyl. It's about the same, just a little bit more than the size of the ear that you can see there on the dime of Eisenhower. And then carfentanil, is even less. That is also an opioid. It's not as readily available as what the fentanyl. Fentanyl is just everywhere now. And I know already of, I think a count of 4 children in our community that have died from fentanyl poisoning. But that's all it takes. And it's not much. If we go back to these pictures of this, that's a lot, right? But these pills right here are the latest thing that is coming across the border. And it comes in all kinds of different forms. It comes sometimes in a blue pill. They're doing whatever they can to make sure that our kids die from this fentanyl poisoning. It needs to, the border needs to be closed. I mean, just simply close, shut down, close. The wall needs to be built. It needs to be closed because the people in power right now could care less about our children. And I don't know what it's going to take, but we need to do it as a country, as civilians. I remember back, I believe I would think I was just out of high school or maybe in high school, if I remember this correctly. If anybody else knows, it was in the 80s that a bunch of Americans went down to the border and actually parked their cars out there. Do you remember that happening? If anybody else is old enough to remember when they were doing that, they were going down armed. Americans were guarding our border because we were having some very similar problems at the border. Not like now. This is way, way worse. And yet the government is just ignoring it and pretending it doesn't happen. But we didn't have this coming across the border, and we didn't have this coming across the border that was killing our kids. Simply killing our kids. It is the leading cause of death in our country right now, with especially males between, I think it's 18 and 30, something like that. And of course, as you go down, we have children, high school, middle school children that are dying from this poisoning in our country right now. We got Char Marie on, who says, so important to talk to our kids. I showed my kids the latest fentanyl pics. Looks like candy, absolutely, and managed to scare my son even more about middle school. So important to educate our kids. I know sometimes you want to guard our kids from some of this stuff, but you can't. Right now, you just need to say, you're going to die. You're going to die if you accept anything from your friends. Just say, no, thank you. And wait till you get home, and we'll take care of you. Yeah, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that very much. So important. I'll put those pictures up again just for people that are joining late as we go. All right, this issue about what is your pronoun? I couldn't believe at dinner time I was asking, how was your day at school? Yeah, one of the teachers wanted to know what our pronouns were at school. What? I just was hoping that I would have a couple of weeks or days that I didn't have to deal with this nonsense. But you could imagine that the first day they're going to the new teacher, and you have these idiots that are in our schools as teachers flying the pride flag in their school. One of my sons said, yeah, the teacher has a pride flag in the classroom. And I want to address this. And again, I have a lot of information about how and why this is also killing our kids. It's killing them emotionally. Some kids are taking their lives because you're putting something into the mix of their day that is already being challenging to them on a social media aspect, their circle of friends aspect, and now you have what are considered teachers are considered trusted adults. At least they have been my entire life, and now you have these people that we, just as a society, we have said these are people that are, I mean, of course, many of us have told our kids, don't trust your teacher if they're not teaching you how to read, write, count, or think. But if they're teaching you what to think, entirely different. And this is one of those issues, is that they used to be trusted. They're no longer trusted. Librarians are not trusted, but they are in the eyes of some of these children who are struggling emotionally, which every child in every decade, in every generation has struggled with something. And here we are fighting, as parents, we are fighting against the world. And I'm not saying that just from a Christian perspective. I know that I'm wearing a cross here, and I probably should put it under my shirt, but I'm not going to. But it's not just from that point of view. The world is killing our kids. They are being told that they're depressed. They're being told that they have anxiety. And because of that depression or anxiety, it's because of them not being comfortable in their skin, that they're probably something else. No, that is the wrong message from trusted adults. I don't want any of you teachers or librarians or coaches, to talk to my children about their struggles when it comes to these issues. If they are noticing something, just like anything else, if my kid comes and they're struggling with a cold or struggling with the flu, you send them home, or you call the parent and say, you know what, your kid's here and they're struggling with X, Y, and Z. And here, as a parent, you decide what to do. And you decide to come and pick them up. You decide to get them help. You decide to take them somewhere to have them treated. That is very similar to these types of things. Now, there's other types of dysphoria that kids can suffer from, that adults suffer from being feeling that they're too fat, feeling that they're too skinny, feeling that they're too dumb, feeling that they're too, I wrote down a couple here just to remind myself, that they're too stupid, that they're too shy, that they're not fast enough, that they're boring and not entertaining enough, that their family life is somehow not doesn't meet up to the standards of the rest of the friends in their friend group. And these can all be dysphorias. And for none of those things, if a child says that I feel like I'm fat and they're not fat, you don't want a teacher or a librarian going, you know what, maybe you're right, maybe you are fat. And this is serious, and we're not going to tell your parents that you're fat. Remember, this is the same thing, right? You have a child who's, a healthy in their whatever it is that their weight is. So I don't know. Maybe it's a boy and he's in middle school and he's 90 pounds. I'm just throwing it out there. All right, that obviously is not fat. And we'll go with the girl, because this obviously tends to be more on happens with girls, where they see these TikToks or they see these Instagrams where they see models constantly in this very skinny or thin form, wearing bathing suits and glamour shots and traveling the world because of how they look. And now you're going to have a girl saying, I'm fat, I'm ugly. And you're going to, and I'm just want to say, what if you had a teacher? What if you had a librarian or coach go to them, you are ugly, you are fat. Well, you wouldn't do that. Why? Because you're going to destroy them. You're going to, I would hope that somebody would say, you know what, you are, the last thing you are is fat, right? And even if they were, you're not going to say, hey, you're fat, right? You're going to say, you know what, you are an amazing human being. You're fantastic. And if you do want to work, on yourself, let's get together and go for a walk. Let's go for a hike. If it's a friend, if it's a teacher or a coach or what have you, say, you know what, I want them to email me and say, you know what, your daughter, who is like 75 pounds, thinks that she's like 300 pounds. And that this is a real problem. It's causing her problems. She's sad. She's crying because she thinks she's fat. She's going into the bathroom and throwing up. Right. And so I'm using this as an example. But you wouldn't have the teacher, I don't think, none of them would go, you know what, you're a fat ass, and you really are fat. And you know what, we're not going to tell your parents. All right, you would say, that's so crazy. So now let's bring this to the gender issue, right? You have a child that's struggling, and for a moment they're seeing on TikTok or Instagram or one of their friends is saying, you know what, your depression or anxiety, it may be because you're the wrong sex. And now you have a teacher going, you know what? They may be right. As a girl, yeah, you were born a girl, but you're probably a boy. And you know what? I'm not going to tell your parents, but we're going to start calling you Joe. And we are, why don't you? And they're going to start giving them ideas in their head, saying, why don't you come, whatever your parents want you to dress in, come in that clothing. But as soon as you get to school, change into boy clothes, because I know that you feel more comfortable that way. And what you're doing now is you're prolonging this anxiety or depression, whatever it is that's causing the dysphoria and this belief, and you're convincing them that now they are this other gender that they were not born with, and you're exacerbating the prolonged problem that would have just in most cases go away. Andy, how do you know that? I don't know. I know that I've dealt with it in my home, and I know that one of our children who went through this very similar thing, that once we just prayed over it and we stopped, we had an active role in it with the discussion and saying, we don't accept that. We don't accept that you're the other sex. We do, but we are going to, continue to love you and be with you, but we're not going to accept that. And we're not going to call you by another name that's going to support that or give you the idea that we agree with it. And guess what? The person got over it, right? And they came back from that idea and that thought. And so that's my experience. But there's also a study that I want to bring to your attention. The link for this in the Wall Street Journal is in the description, so you can bring it up and you can read through it. And right down in, oh man, I had it brought up, but I scrolled and started looking at something else. And so in this paragraph, I'm going to read it, and it brings to the attention of the reader studies that were done in Vanderbilt University and London's Portman Clinic. And this is not the only two. I found others that had exactly the same or very similar findings as this study. And what's important to you to know in this study is that this is temporary in most cases. So I'm going to read the entire paragraph. It says, you won't hear it from those championing transgender equality, but controlled and follow-up studies reveal fundamental problems with this movement. The movement I'm talking about. When children who reported transgender feelings were tracked without medical or surgical treatment at both Vanderbilt University and London's Portman Clinic, 70 to 80%, I'm sure it's higher, but I'm just going to tell you 70 to 80%. I mean, it's higher. It can be higher if you keep people out of it that have no reason or no business being in your child's grill about changing their sex. So back to the article. Sorry, I got all upset there. 70, 80% of them spontaneously, I'm going to say it again, spontaneously lost those feelings. Some 25% did have persistent feelings. What differentiations those individuals remains to be discerned. And so they don't know why 25% continue to have those persistent. I'm telling you that I know that it's people kept pushing it upon them. And saying, I feel strongly that there's 25%, and that's kind of what used to be the norm. This article is kind of, much of this study is from years ago. But I'm telling you that if you recently were to take this study, that spontaneously, those people that spontaneously went back to believing that they were the sex they were born with is going to be lower, because we have a bunch of numbskulls that believe, and many of them are in our government in Sacramento, have took it upon themselves to say, you know what, we just need to affirm it. And we don't want you telling the parents, and teachers, you don't tell the parents, and vice principals and principals and counselors and coaches, you don't tell the parents either. We're going to convince this child who temporarily thinks that they're the opposite sex, and we're going to get them to cut off those parts that remind them of this horrible sex they were born with. And so you're reducing the number of children that would have normally spontaneously changed back to what they felt is normal. And again, that drives people crazy when you say that's normal. It's not normal. It is a normal thing. And so we have to look at these things and look at these studies and look at the results of these studies and allow parents to be parents. This is so crazy that our state has created these laws, and we need to fight back. This is my argument with the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District, they sent me, when I sent this email describing very similar things and other studies that show that this is just nonsense, is that I got sent back, not by any of the people that I voted into the offices, none of the school board members, and neither the school district, none of the superintendents emailed me back. I got one from a spokesperson. I got an email from the spokesperson, Alyssa. Alyssa sends me, well, these are the guidelines we're following. I don't care. Like, we, as parents, again, the reason I started this broadcast the way that I did is because parents were right about the mandates also, that you decided not to go with this. And we told you, fight back against the county, fight back against the state, fight back against the federal government, because they're wrong. We know they're wrong because we see the studies coming out of other countries, because our country decided not to do any studies in regard to the mandates. But other countries are saying, you guys are crazy, because shutting down your country, shutting down your schools, masking your children is horrific. You're killing your children's chances of succeeding. You're causing kids to have mental breakdowns and depression and anxiety that they would not normally have had because of these mandates. And you ignored the parents who know. We know our kids. We know what's happening. We took the time to research. Every study that I sent you guys there at the school district, you ignored. Every study that I knew other parents sent you, you ignored. You didn't have any studies that went with the mandates, that went with the idea that we should have been masking. None of you did. I got nothing from anybody, from the county, from the state, from the district. Got nothing that said, you know what we're doing is right. Never received anything. You never had anything. There was never anything for you to send me. We had all the proof that what was happening was wrong, just like we do on this issue too. The parents that know that if my kid is struggling with something mentally, physically, whether it's a friend issue, we need to be notified and we need to be a part of it. And we need to hear when our kid is struggling with things like who they are as a person, whether it is one of the other dysphorias of being too fat, being too skinny, being too stupid, whatever it is also in the same lines as I don't feel right in my skin. I mean, there's kids that struggle with what race they are because of you, school district superintendents and teachers and librarians and coaches and people who decided that, you know what, if you're white, you're an oppressor. If you're anything else, you're oppressed. And you're telling children that they are oppressed, that they can't learn because of the white man. They can't be as good as they are because they're holding you back. And when you begin to tell children that they are weak, that they are stupid, that they are soft because of somebody else, they're going to begin to believe it. They're going to begin to believe that they are oppressed. And then they grow up to steal from others, to not pay back their school loans, to do all these things that you're hoping that you're going to do. This is all something that they're hoping to do, to destroy the children that are coming to the school. You know, it's really interesting that you have these teachers unions that interfere with everything and do nothing good at all. What, Andy, you're really saying that the teachers unions do nothing good and you're a teacher that, supports? Yes, I'm telling you, they do nothing good. All they're concerned about is getting people voted into power that will give them more power. They have no care for the teachers, or else you wouldn't have teachers standing up at school board meetings saying how horrible their jobs are. They're getting up there and they're saying, my job is the worst profession on the planet. It's the most dangerous. I have to pay out of my own pocket. It's miserable. Vote teachers unions in. And you're going, did you just not hear yourself say that your job is miserable, horrible at Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District? Really? You want me to believe that your job as a teacher at the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District is the hardest job on the planet? Harder than firemen, police officers, military personnel, doctors who have to deal with death on a daily basis. I could go on. People that have to dig ditches, the guy hanging from the electrical lines. Your job is harder and more difficult than theirs. And then you're voting in the teachers union who's supposed to be supporting teachers. And the teachers union get up there and say, we've given to organizations, and they name a bunch of organizations that have everything else to do other than education or teachers. That the teachers dues that they're given, they're using those dues to pay for all kinds of other shenanigans, and yet you have these just outrageous fees of transportation fees the parents now have to pay so that their kids can go to another school to play against them in whatever sport that they're in. That it costs $10,000 or more for the parents to pay for a child to be in cheerleading. It's going to cost me somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000, somewhere in that area, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more for lacrosse. How much does it cost for children to play in football that the parents have to pay? Yet the teachers' unions are taking all this money that they're getting from what have you, and they are doing stuff outside of the school district, outside of their teachers, outside of the children that they say that they claim that they care so much about. You have the school district spending money, $630,000 on an online program for 1 year. $630,000 for an online program. It's an online program. It's not like somebody's actively doing something. It's an online program. You create the program. I've created programs. I've created training programs. You tape them once, you put them together once, and then they're there. What's the $630,000 for? A little maintenance, that maybe there's a glitch, maybe something goes wrong, but you're $630,000, and this is just one school district. This iReady is on in other school districts, and they're getting a $600,000 a pop from all these different school districts. Are you kidding me? And you're approving it? Buck and Freeman and Anderson, you guys are approving that nonsense? Oh, I'm getting all fired up again. I told myself, Andy, don't get all fired up. But you can see how you're like the FBI. You've just spent so much time doing wrong and evil and deceit and deception, and now you suddenly want us to trust you with our kids and deciding what gender they are going to be and not have the parents involved. And you're gonna feel good about asking them what their pronouns are, so that you can begin the cycle of them questioning. Oh, well, I gotta fit in. So you have these children that are struggling, freshmen that are coming in and that are struggling with their first year of high school, right? And they want to fit in, and they see the teacher has an LGBTQ flag inside of their classroom, and they come in, and the teacher goes, "All right, I'm going to ask each one of you what your name is, what your pronoun is, and what you want to be called. Now, I'm not going to tell your parents, that Melissa, that's your name now. But if you want to be called Johnny, I'm not going to tell your parents. And I want to know what pronoun." And the kid's going, "Wait a minute, this is what we do in high school?" And you got these freshmen that are nervous. They're coming in. They probably got there early, and they actually did their hair and washed their clothes, and they're there. And they don't want to be pointed out as being a racist or an oppressor, and they're white kids, right? And they're coming in, they're going, "Pronoun? Oh, I've heard about this on TikTok. I've heard about this on Instagram. I've heard about this." And this is high school. I mean, this would be happening in middle school. It'd be happening in elementary school now. And they're going, "Gosh, I don't want the person next to me to think that I'm a homophobe or whatever it is they're being called these days." And they go, "My pronoun is MAGA." No, my pronoun what is they're trying to figure out. My pronoun is cisgender. I don't know. I wouldn't know. This is so wrong. And we have to stop this. I don't care what Sacramento says, Alyssa. And I didn't vote for you, Alyssa. Now, Alyssa, I like a lot. She's very friendly, and I like it. But Alyssa, I didn't vote you in. I didn't vote for you, Alyssa Griffith. Right? I did, and I wasn't a part of the school board members that I did hire weren't a part of hiring the superintendent, who's also decided that this is okay. We're going to allow this to happen. We're going to allow coaches and librarians to do this to our children. It's not okay. Fight back. Oh, you're going to get fined. I don't care. The parents will probably chip in and say, "You know what? We'll pay that fine for the school district until we get this crap straightened out, and we're going to sue. We're going to sue the state, just like the churches sued against having to pay for abortions. They sued. The state of California said, we have this new law that churches have to pay for abortions now. And it took 8 years, but the churches sued and they won. We have churches that sued about the mandates, about not closing down, and they won that too. I don't care. The problem is you're not willing to fight back for what is right for our kids. This is destroying kids, just like the fentanyl is. It's killing our kids. It's destroying them. And we need to fight back. Get back to education. If my kid comes to you and says, "I'm struggling, with these issues," you get a hold of me and say, "You know what? Your son came to me today, or your daughter came to me today and said that they're really struggling with their identity and who they are. I just wanted to let you know, and I'll leave it up to you. They also asked if they could change their name from, funny enough, my son's name is Kelly. He could use it either way. I still find that hilarious. Let's say Bo. So Bo came to us and he wants to be called Sally. I just thought I'd let you know. Perfect. Thank you. I will deal with my son and I will talk to him about this idea that he got from, whatever his feelings are, and we'll work through it and we'll pray for him. Those of you that are not religious, you don't have to pray for him. You can just work with them and talk with them and say, you know what? I don't want to, I'm not going to affirm that, but I do want to deal with why you're feeling that way. And there's all kinds of things you can do. This is really just such nonsense. And it just really is really opening a door. And as I was speaking in Ventura the other day at an event for the Republican Party out there in Ventura, and this is the problem, is that you let in just a little bit. You give the left, you give these morons a sliver of something. Whether it is, you can fly the flag for a day, the transgender flag or whatever you call it. What's the thing called? LGBTQ flag or pride flag. You can fly that for a day. But now see what happened. You've opened it up, and now it creates a much bigger problem. That's how they work. That's how this works. Let's. I'm sorry. We're gonna wipe it clean. Let's just wipe it clean. And start with education. What are we going to do for math? We're going to get rid of this Common Core crap that they're doing, and we're going to go back to the basics of math. 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 2 = 4. All right, and we're going to go back to that. And let's go in regard to reading. Let's go back to phonics. I don't know what this other crap is that you're doing, but it's not working because our reading scores are below 50% at the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District, and it's worse in other school districts. Kids can't read. And it's because you're trying this other crap that doesn't work. Let's go back to phonics, and so on and so forth. All right, I'm not going to go through them all. But wow, we have a long road here, folks. But Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District needs to become the light of the state of California to see how education is supposed to be. And I know we have 2.5 people on the school board right now who want to fight against this idea that our kids should be educated. I know it's a strange thing that's what we expect from our schools, but we got 2.5 people. You got Buck, you got Freeman, and you got Anderson, who really, for whatever reason, think education is not that important. But genderism is, oppressed and oppressor, oppressed versus oppressor is way more important. And a whole lot of other nonsense. Online programs that don't work is way more important. Spending as much money as possible on things that aren't important towards education are way more important. I know that that's a problem, and we are in the minority currently. Hopefully, we won't be in the minority. But I want to bring back, this weird concept, which is called education, teaching kids how to read, write, count, and think, and get back to that. And if there's these issues, the whole last thing I just want to make sure, and of course, it doesn't matter where I start with this, that somebody's going to write somewhere on some social media platform that this guy, Andy, he's, I'm not going to use the old name that they gave me, but, he's a homophobic and all this. I don't care. I've told you before, my aunt, my entire life, I'm 60 years old, my entire life, she and her wife, I don't know because that's not what they called her back then, but they were part of my life my entire life. I love both of them. I have friends that 4th of July, we went to a party. The couple is gay, and we had a blast over there at their house. They are fun people. The furthest thing that I am is that a homophobic, and that's not the issue. That is something for our family to deal with, and not a teacher, a coach, a librarian, or a counselor for you to deal with. Your job is to educate my kids. These other things are just going to be an issue that we will deal with, and we will work through it. We had one child that we worked through it with, and he or she is exactly where they need to be at this current time, and that is the way it's supposed to be handled. So we need to get back to the basic education. Hopefully, we will. But right now, that's not what's happening in our schools, and we need to make some huge changes. Sorry, I got all there. Debbie says, I messaged you guys. Thank you. I will look for that, Debbie. I will look for that. Karen, Common Core sucks. None of the nonsense is working. These people are crazy. The people that become in charge of our education here in the state have lost their ever loving mind. And so we need to get back to education. I mean, from our time, Karen, you're much younger than I am, and Shard way younger than I am. And Debbie, is that, in the times that we went to school and were educated, out of that came Steve Jobs and unfortunately Bill Gates. Again, he's done some good things, but also he's doing some really bad things. You have people that have created the Tesla. I can't remember his name right now, for some Elon Musk. And I can go on with all these names. They came out of an education where we didn't have Common Core. We didn't have whatever it is. I'm not sure what you call it that they're teaching people how to read right now. But again, we were trained in phonics in many cases. Or here's a book, and it sounded out, right? Phonics, sounded out, and out of that came brilliant geniuses that have given us the iPhones and the computers and social media in many cases and all this other kind of stuff. I don't know what's going to come of our country if we don't go back to education. Do we just lose the ability to have creation, or are we going to depend on now a fraction of people who are in homeschooling or that have got outside education out of the public school system? Are we going to depend on them? Yes, we're going to depend on them. Man, I just don't know. This is just so. I'm so sad that day one of our school at Placentia Yorba Linda School District is that I get a report. And again, the kids aren't telling me as if, again, I talk very little about my kids about what I'm doing in the school boards. I warn them about this issue right here, which is the fentanyl, and show them and talk to them all the time. My youngest is 8 years old. Again, I've taught my kids how to shoot. I've taught my kids a bunch of stuff that's really, really important, right? And so they know, and they know about that stuff, but they don't know necessarily how much I fight for them on these other issues. And so they're not coming to me, oh, Dad, I have a report to give you about these things. They come to me and just say, I go, how was your day? Oh, man, the teacher asked me what my pronoun was. What did you say, MAGA? That's what I'm hoping that they'll say. Just say, my pride identify as a MAGA. I just like, and then I have teacher, social studies teacher. I think it's social studies. I'm sorry if it's not social studies, but it's one of those teachers in El Dorado that has a pride flag in their classroom. Again, that puts pressure on kids to conform to the indoctrination of what it is they believe wants to be heard, and it's wrong. And then so on and so forth. I just, if I go too far, I'm going to misname a teacher, and I don't want to do that. I haven't learned all the teachers' names yet and their subjects that are doing this kind of stuff, but it's far too many. And then I have some other teachers that one of my sons reported to me that, I had a teacher on there. He goes, hey, don't worry. I'm not going to teach you any of the CRT BS. I'm not going to, I go, what's that teacher's name? I want to send him an award and send him some cookies. Because he goes, I just want to educate you guys. That was what he said, is that he's just, hey, I'm here to educate you guys. And none of this other stuff is nonsense. And I'm going to make sure that by the time you leave this class that you know the subject, and I'm going to teach it to you. And that is what teachers are to do, not this other nonsense. All right. So I hope this didn't. Yes, Hap. Yeah, I know. This is one of the other things. And Hap, you don't have children. I don't believe children in public school right now. We may have some nieces or nephews or something like that. But yes, this stuff is going on. And what I was going to say is that I have parents that have kids in these schools right now. Not just in our school, Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District, but whether it's Anaheim Union School District or Brea or what have you, that I'll see that they've seen some of my social media and that kind of stuff. They said, I had no idea that. And this is like in the last couple of weeks. And they'll say, I didn't know this was going on. I go, where have you been? Well, you need to get to a school board meeting. Well, I don't want to get all involved. I hate to get political. Everything we do today is political. If you go to the grocery store and you see the prices, that's political. If you're putting gas in your car, it's political. If you are dealing with, if your kid is in public school, you're dealing with a political issue that you need to be aware of. So the idea that you are going to shield yourself from political issues means that you have your head in the sand, and you need to wake up. It's constant it's a constant bombardment of issues that you did not think you were ever going to have to deal with in your lifetime. And you would have thought, no way. There's no way that this is happening. There's no way that our southern border would be so open that in less than 2 years, 5 million criminals would come across our border. You would have said, there's no way that's going to happen. It just happened. It just happened. There's no way that we would allow poison. Listen to me. There's no way that we allow enough poison to come across our border into our country to kill hundreds of thousands of people, that you would think that would ever happen. That is happening and has happened already, and it's going to continue to happen. And we do nothing about it. Nothing is being done. It is continuing to happen. They're continuing to have this stuff come across the border by hundreds of tons, maybe not hundreds of tons, but tons of illegal narcotics, aka poison, coming across our borders to kill our people. The leading cause of death in our country right now is fentanyl poisoning of men and people from the age of 18 and younger to 30 years old. If somebody would have came to you and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to make this prediction that in a couple of years, we as a country, we're going to have a president, a vice president, an entire administration, and Border Patrol, even though they don't want to, but they're being told to do it. They're going to allow a incredibly deadly poison come across our border, and they're just going to allow it to happen. They're not going to stop it. They're not going to do anything about it in relationship to the countries that are actually creating it. They're going to do nothing against those two countries, China and Mexico, and they're going to invite it. They're going to tell the other countries and the people that bring it that it's okay. We want you to come over, and we're going to give you sanctuary in specific cities, not all cities, but in some cities, in some states, entire states, or they're going to give you sanctuary to bring this poison across so that you can kill hundreds of Americans. You would have said, there's no effing way, is what you would have said. Out loud, without the effing. You would have said the entire word. There's no way. Andy, you're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. You are a white supremacist. You would have said all these things, right? It is happening today. This stuff right now is coming across our borders, and they're designing it so that children will take it. They're creating it in such a way that it will be inviting to children so that they can take it and die. And that is what's happening in our country right now. Sorry, I'm getting so excited. Karen says, my kids aren't taking the AP Lit class. They should be, because the teacher is notorious for pushing her liberal ideology on students and grading down those who don't agree with her. Absolutely, that is happening, Karen. That is happening today. Thank you, Karen, for sharing. Many people aren't brave enough, like Karen and Shar, and others who have commented, Karen in HAP, to come on and to say this. We know this happening, and we see it. Many parents aren't. It's shocking to me. Why aren't you, who are watching and not saying anything, or watching this in a replay? That I've heard you, and I've heard people say, well, I don't want to say anything because, my family, they're a bunch of liberals and they'll get really mad and they'll stop talking to me. I don't care. I can care. I have family that told me that they're going to stop talking to me. I have friends that no longer, really good friends, such good friends at one point who are not talking to me, pretend I don't exist, or call me an idiot. Some still stay on to call me an idiot, or a whole bunch of other names. And I invite it. I don't care. Some people say, well, I'll get fired. Get fired. I don't care. I've been fired from jobs. I have people that won't use me as in my consulting business because of what I say, because of my stance, because I care about my kids, because I want my kids to become educated, because I don't want my kids to be poisoned and die, because I think it's my job to raise my kids and not the teacher at their school that's only going to see them. Again, you're going to have a teacher that's going to see them for one school year, maybe 170 hours total. 170 hours total. That person who's going to see my child for 170 hours total is going to have an effect on my kids that I'm going to be left with in dealing with this pain and suffering that they're going to be going through. Their uneducation or miseducation, I think is a better way of saying it. I think apparently I'm not educated, but I'm going to have to deal with their miseducation. And it's all going to be because of a teacher that's going to be spending somewhere in the neighborhood of 170 hours total in their lifetime. A librarian, even less time, a coach, even less time. That person is going to be allowed to not tell me about my kids suffering from something that they've been, as a trusted adult, have been given this information, that they don't turn around and say, you know what, your son came to me and was talking to me about something that I think is very serious and you should know about it. But no, they're going to say, I can't tell you. The state told me that I can't tell you, that it's illegal for me to tell you. That's the world we're living in now. That a person that's going to be a fraction of a moment in the entire life, right? I wrote it down. There's 8,765 hours in a year. And out of 175 of those hours, again, I may be going a little bit over on that, is what's going to affect my child for either the rest of their life, and it could possibly kill them. That I'm handing that over to you to destroy my child's life in that very short period of time you're with my kid. No. Your job in that 175 hours is to teach them something positive that's going to further their life, that's going to take them to their job, that's going to take them into this world, to be a volunteer, to be a missionary, to be a business owner, to be a coach or a teacher themselves. Your job is not to destroy them in that 170 hours and give me something that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. That they're going to be poisoned and maybe not die, maybe become a vegetable, or to become, disabled because of the near poisoning that they got if they don't die. That I'm going to have to struggle with the death of my child because you decided that it wasn't important enough to tell me what it was that was going on in their school, that they shared with you, that they told you. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. And yet we're allowing it as parents because we don't go to the school board meetings, because we're afraid to say something. We're afraid to get fired from our jobs. Who cares? Fire me from my job. Don't hire me as a consultant in the business that I currently do. I don't care, because I care about my kids more. And you need to show up at the school board meetings, and you need to vote for Todd Frazier. You need to vote for Rich Engel, who are running for the school board member in area 4 and 5. And that's what needs to happen to make these changes. So let's make those changes. Again, I went over. So God bless you guys that are watching. Those of you that are watching that are not saying anything, either you're driving, which is, you shouldn't be saying anything, but you need to speak up and you need to speak out and you need to show up at the school board meetings. Those of you that are watching that are on the other side that hate my children, that want to kill my children through the poisoning of their minds so that they quite possibly could be poisoned by the fentanyl, you need to go away because you're incompetent and you need not to be on the school board. And you need not to be a district superintendent. You need not probably just work in the school district because you're incompetent and you're not willing to fight back against these things that are killing our kids. And so there you go. If you're a grandparent and watching this, you need to show up to the school board meetings too. If you're an aunt and uncle and don't have kids yourself, you need to show up to school board meetings, and you need to show up and vote. If you live in area 5 or area 4, you need to find out who it is that you can support, whether it's Rich Engel or Todd Frazier, and you need to support them. You need to walk your neighborhood with flyers and tell people why they need to vote for these two great men. One's an attorney, Rich Engel, an attorney, and you got Todd Frazier, who's an accountant, who will go in and find out where we're spending our money and what it is that we can do to fight against some of these things, and make sure that we stop affecting our kids in a negative way. All right, my friends. All right, I'm gonna start on a whole nother rant. Like I said, I have so much other stuff here that I could tell you why it's important to know these issues inside and out, and why it's important for you to be involved. All right, my friends. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. And sorry, I'm going to play my intro as the outro. I know it seems strange, but that's all I have right now. I'll fix it later. All right, take care. Share, like, subscribe. Make sure other people that you think should see this video, this podcast, especially the stuff about the fentanyl. It's so important. Make sure they see it. Make sure you share these pictures and you talk to your children about the fentanyl. So, so important. All right, my friends, that's it. I'm getting out of here.